everyone. So I'm going to go through how I make the joints, specifically the knee joint here of a ball jointed doll in a 3D sculpting app. I'm using Nomad Sculpt right now. So here's a doll that I already had made, and this is the version before I had done any jointing. And we're going to do the knee, and here somehow I had already done a part, which I had not meant to, but what we're going to do is we're going to go and take the split tool and section off the bottom and the top of where we want the kneecap to be. Here's something that my husband texted me, an amazing fact. Indeed. Anyway, so we have this split and we have the kneecap, the thigh, and the shin, and we're just focusing on the kneecap right now. And we have this selected. We're going to move it out. And this is a knee joint where you see the kneecap. It's not a completely hidden joint that goes totally inside of the knee where you don't see it from the front. This will be one where you do see like the kneecap shape. And there are so many ways to make joints. And I'm actually very new to this. This is just what I have found to work for me. So here we have the kneecap is kind of cut out, and what we're going to do is we're going to add a primitive. We're going to add a sphere for the top. Kind of put it into position so that we do have that lip on the front of where the kneecap is going to be sort of, poking out in the front of the leg. Okay, so I'm trying to stretch it out a bit to make it longer. The doll here that I made when I made the knees the first time, I made pretty long knees so that she could completely bend her leg and kind of sit on her heels, which I like. So here we're just getting it in the right shape, trying to align it in the position that we want. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in clone that egg shape that we have and take it down. So we're sort of making like a bean or a peanut shape. Bring it down. Okay. I'm doing the voiceover afterwards. Sorry for all the awkward pauses. I'm not sure what I was doing there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to select our knee shape again, not the beans that we just made, but the kneecap shape, the original one that we had made. And we are going to split it so that we kind of just have the kneecap there in the front, and we're getting rid of the excess towards the center that's kind of bulging out of the sides from the spheres that we placed. I could not decide if I wanted to use trim or split. Okay, we decided on trim. So we're going to make sure the kneecap is selected, and then we're going to just trim the shape that we want to cut off with the lasso tool on the left over there. I also have mirror on so that it will do it on both sides. Okay, I'm going to take a look at that, and that looks pretty good. That is looking pretty good. Looks like we need to sort of adjust the egg on the bottom there because it's sort of popping out a bit further than I would like. I'm going to hide these other parts. One thing I've found that I'm really bad at in Nomad is naming things and not ever having anything with the correct name. So it takes a while to find what I'm looking for. So here we go. We're kind of shrinking and squishing that shape to make it a bit narrower. It also looks like it's over a little bit too far to the left while looking at it from the back. So this is where you just kind of do adjustments. You want to make sure that it's not going to be too wide, and you want to make sure that you don't have any super thin places for when you print. If it's too thin, it'll make it too brittle or even just not print well at all. So here I am making the thigh and the shin visible again so that we can kind of check and see how that alignment is working within the leg. And it looks like it's a bit crooked, so I'm selecting everything here, the kneecap and the two spheres, and moving it back. So as you can see, we have that kneecap and it fits in perfectly into the thigh and the shin because we just cut out that specific shape from the leg. Things are definitely crooked here. Yeah, so that's going to be pretty crooked. We're going to go ahead and select the individual eggs and kind of straighten them up. There we go. Okay, so that's looking better. We're looking at it from different angles to make sure, again, that we don't have any walls that are too super thin, and everything, for the most part, looks nice and thick here. Yeah, not bad. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mesh the kneecap and the two eggs together, and I'm going to go and do a voxel remesh here, and that worked. That meshed everything together, but it looks pretty sloppy. Not as nice as I was looking for. You can take the smooth tool and kind of smooth it out, but if your mesh is not high enough, then it's still going to look pretty bumpy. So I went and undid all of that. We're going to go back and we're going to try something a bit different. We're going to go into the Boolean option, and through voxel merge, we are turning up the resolution there, and that's a little bit better. It's still not great, but I think it turned out a little bit nicer. And again, we can take the smooth tool and sort of smooth out those edges so that they're not as rough. You hit the solo button down there in the bottom so that you can only see the piece that you have selected, which can be really handy for things like this. Okay, so there we go. It's looking better. It's starting to look knee joint like. Awesome. So here it is in the leg again. Not too shabby. So, okay, what we need to do here is cut out where I just kind of gestured out of the calf and out of the back of the top, or sorry, the bottom of the thigh, so that there's room for the legs to move around whenever you bend them. We need to do a bit of a cutout there. Okay, I'm just kind of trying different things with the x-ray just to see what's going to make it easiest for me to see where I need to make those cuts. And with the x-ray tool, you can go and you can select different ways to view it, which is pretty handy, especially when you're making things with joints and sockets that go into each other. Okay, so we're taking the trim tool. We've selected the thigh up here, and we're going to just kind of cut a gentle shape out of the top there so that there's more room for that knee joint to move. Again, I have symmetry turned on, and that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that right there. Okay, and we will need to do getting rid of that other leg over there. I made an instance and then separated it and then deleted the other leg. I'm still pretty new to Nomad Sculpt as well, so there might be better ways to do these things, but that is what I have found works. And here I am actually naming my parts, which really comes in handy when you're doing things like voxel merging and booleans. Okay, looking good. All right, now we are going to do the same thing with the calf right here. We're going to take the trim tool and do the same sort of thing, cut the same sort of shape out of the back here. Always make sure that the piece that you want to work on is selected so that you're not trimming a different piece. So we've got that. I'm not super happy with that one. There's a bit like of a lip up there that I didn't want. So we're going to try again. Okay, that's not bad. And so see the top and mostly the top of the leg there. So the bottom of the thigh is super thick. And whenever you're working on your doll, you can go in and sort of move that around and smooth it out, thin it out. But for the purpose of this video, we're just working on constructing the actual joint. So I'm not going to do that right now. All right, so we've got our joint made. We've got the sort of holes cut out of the back, and now what we need to do is we need to do either voxel merge or a boolean with the knee shape that we made into the thigh and the shin so that it has, that socket for the knee to fit into, and we're going to make it so that it fits perfectly. It's the exact same shape of the knee. Let's see. Oh, okay. So here I am trying to make some little nubs for leg locks. These are not necessary totally, but they can be helpful when holding a pose, keeping the legs straight while standing. And so I wanted to use symmetry so that I could make them kind of the same on each side. But my gizmo was not right in the center of my knee, my object. So I went and I used the pivot function to move my gizmo to make it a little bit more symmetrical. So here I'm using the drag tool, and it's too big. I need to make that smaller. And we can kind of pull out these little nubs. And where we have symmetry on, it'll do it on either side for us, which is nice. So we turn on solo, kind of take a look. I'm going to pull them out a little bit more. And then I'll be grabbing the smooth tool and kind of smoothing those down so that they're not so aggressively pointy. The first time I made knees, I made them super pointy, and it made bending the knee once the doll was assembled way too difficult. It just was not working well. Okay, and as you can see, the little nubs here are kind of going into the leg, which you can point them outwards a little bit more so that they're not touching the thigh part. But you can also, once we do our boolean, which is cutting the shape out of the leg, you can have just like little divots where the nub sort of go for further stability and locking the knee. So we're doing the same thing down here, and it seems that for whatever reason the symmetry is being strange. One of these nubs is not like the other. So yeah, that is that is not symmetrical. So I'm just going to turn off the symmetry and adjust the little guy right there. And then once again, we're smoothing. It still does not look symmetrical, but you get the idea. And again, the nubs aren't totally necessary. I've found with dolls printed in filament, which is most of the dolls that I print, it makes a really big difference as far as posing and whatnot goes. But I just printed this doll in resin, and I'm actually new to resin dolls, and I find that it holds poses much better even without the little locks. So I think it's personal preference. Okay, so we're going to do our Boolean. What I did is I went and I selected the knee and I cloned it so that we don't lose that shape forever, because once you use a shape in Nomad, as far as I know, to either voxel merge or Boolean with a different shape, you lose the shape. So we have to select the knee, and that little eye icon there, we click it so that it's invisible, and that is very important for what we are trying to do. The whatever item you have selected, if it is invisible, it is going to be cut out of the other items that you have selected that are visible. So we're selecting the thigh, and I like to do the thigh and the calf separately, just one at a time. We have our thigh selected, we have our knee is invisible, and well, here first what I'm doing actually is I'm selecting either part, so both the thigh and the knee, and I'm going to voxel remesh, and I'm turning up the resolution quite a bit. And I do this because that will help make the cut much cleaner once we merge our objects. And I'm going ahead and doing it with the calf as well. Okay, so here we go. We've got our knee, it's invisible. We've got it selected as well as the thigh, which is visible, and we're going to go and do a Boolean cut. I'm actually not sure what the difference between the voxel merge and the Boolean is as far as cutting things, but we're going to do the Boolean, and I'll show you how that worked. Okay, so it looks like it did make the cut there, which is nice. I'm going to go ahead and select the knee and move it out so that we can look at the cut that we just made. And there you go. As you can see, we've got this perfect cutout of the knee in the exact shape that we need. So it's going to fit really nicely in the leg there. And we're going to go and do the same thing with the calf, but what we need to do is we need to make another clone of the knee so that the knee is not gone forever. So we'll have a copy there once we do our merging. Okay. Just trying to figure out what the pieces are. So once you merge pieces, sometimes the names change to a piece that it's actually not. Okay, so this time I did the voxel merge function instead of the Boolean, just to show you that it does essentially the same thing. Again, I'm not sure what the difference is, but here we go. Okay, so we've got that nice clean cut out of both the calf and the thigh now. And since we made a copy of our knee, we still have a knee, which is great. Okay, great. And now what we need to do is we're going to just go ahead and focus on the knee. You would be adding channels through the legs at some point for elastic to run through, but since we're just focusing on the joints, we are going to not think about that and just focus on the knee. So here I added a cylinder primitive so that we can make the channel that goes directly down through the kneecap for elastic to go through. Okay, that was a super dramatic pause. But here we go. I think this is my screen recording app is not being great, but we are shrinking the cylinder down and kind of look at it from the top. You'll want to look at it from the bottom. You want the hole to pretty much be centered as much as you can. And of course, we want to make the cylinder long enough so that it goes completely through the knee because we want it to be a full channel to go all the way through. And now we're looking at it from the front and it's not centered that way. There we go. That's looking better. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with the position there. So I'm making sure that the resolution on both of our objects is pretty high, and whoa, that one is already super high for some reason, so we're good there. So we're going to take the knee, we are making our cylinder invisible and selecting it, and do a Boolean, and once again it makes a nice clean cut for us. Feel free to take the smooth tool and smooth out the edges there if you like. I'm not going to right now. Okay, so we've got that channel going up and down, and we also need vertical slits in the top and the bottom of the knee so that there's room for the elastic to move whenever we bend the leg. So I will show you how I like to do that. Whoops. Okay, I'm going to go and add a primitive, and it's going to be a box. Okay, and I like the edges to be a bit rounded, and I just honestly figured out how to do this. I like the edges to be rounded on the channels there, so I go and play with these subdivision sliders to get the level of roundness that I like. As you can see, I don't exactly know what I'm doing, but we end up getting there in the end. I think it's really the post subdivision and then the box topology, which I will end up, I think, messing with so that it will get to be, there we go. There we go. See how the corners and the edges are softening and kind of rounding out? That's what I'm looking for. Again, this isn't necessary. You could just do a box, or you could even do a cylinder or a sphere that you kind of squish and flatten out so that it's a long, elongated shape. But I find that I like that rounded corner sort of box shape. We're going to shrink it so that we don't want it going through the front of the knee. We just want it going through the back. So you just make sure that it does not go all the way through the front. And then we want to leave some space there in the middle where the crease is. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Again, you kind of want it to be centered and straight. Going to increase the resolution there for a remesh. And I'm going to take my smooth tool, and it's not even at 100%, but we're going to smooth this shape out so that whenever we do our Boolean or our voxel merge, there's not all of those little rough squares in our cut. There we go. See, that's nice and soft and rounded and smooth. And then from here, what I would do, I already have this done, but what I would do is I would go and I would save this specific object. You can export it as an STL or object or whatever, and save it so that you have this little, this little cutout gizmo ready for whenever you do make joints. It would be great for the channels in both knees and elbows and thigh joints as well. Okay, so that's looking pretty good on the top there. We're going to need another one for the bottom. So I go and I clone our box, and we just pull it down and put it where we want it. Again, leaving some space in the center where the crease is there, making sure that it's not going through the front of our knee. It's kind of adjusting a little bit. There we go. There we go. Awesome. So I think that's going to end up looking pretty decent. And then here we will take our box and its clone, make them invisible, select it, both of them, as well as the knee. Going to do our Boolean. And now, as you can see, we've got these nice cutouts for the channels, and our channeling is done. And honestly, the knee is done. Again, there are plenty of different types of joints and knees that you can make. This is not the only way. I am not a professional. This is just how I have figured out how to do it, and I found that it works pretty well. And this also applies to elbows. Pretty much just the same thing and a very similar shape. It is a tiny bit different with elbows because one side of the joint needs to be rounder to account for kind of like swiveling of the forearm, but maybe I can make a different video about that specifically sometime. We're just checking the knee. I'm using the pivot tool on the shin here and moving it up so that we can kind of simulate how a doll's knee will bend. And as you can see, it looks nice and smooth and nothing is like obstructed, and it should turn out pretty well. So I hope this was helpful. Hopefully I explained things fairly well. Please let me know if you have any questions or any other requests for tutorials. And show me your dolls that you make if you make any. See ya!